Hello, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scary-ish podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace, and this is Adam Diaz, and
Hello.
We're here to talk to you about some weird, creepy things.
Indeed we are. I'm actually really excited for this week's topic. I was researching something I barely knew anything about, and I'm really happy I did because I know a lot more about it. That's how research works. So stay in school, fools.
Wow.
But I'm super excited. What are you going to be covering this week,
Don't
Robin?
be a beauty school dropout.
What the fuck does that mean?
It's from Greece. I don't know.
I'm like, I don't know this reference. So what are you going to be covering this week?
This week, I actually posted a poll last week on Patreon, and all our lovely patrons at the Choose Your Own Adventure tier and up were able to vote, and you guys have picked creepypasta, and so I've picked a whole bunch of creepypasta.
So you picked a specific creepypasta? Or you're gonna do multiples?
I picked a few.
Okay, right on.
I literally just said I picked a couple.
I thought you were only doing one. That's why I was asking for clarification's sake. So
open your goddamn ears.
You're letting the patrons tell you what to do, which is always fun, and it usually results in pretty good episodes. So
yeah, it's really cool because you guys will pick stuff that we normally wouldn't choose, and it's kind of nice.
Indeed. So this week I decided that I was going to cover the Island of the Dolls, as inspired by one of our listeners and friends. But I'll cover that story when I actually get to the story I'm going to read. But yeah, super excited to cover it. So good stuff.
Are you going first?
I don't know. We haven't really talked about it. We'll figure it out. Let's just play it by ear. Really quickly. It's the word is quickly. Really quickly. I just want to give a big shout out to everyone that signed up for Patreon and the January Patreon push. It really does mean a lot to us. And even though January is over, you can still go ahead and sign up. Go over to patreon.com/scaryishpodcast. And for as little as $1 a month, you can sign up and become one of our wonderful patrons and get early access to episodes just like this one.
Yeah.
But that's the only really big shout I want to do. I didn't want to do a huge, big marketing campaign like we did for January. But I did want to thank everyone and let them know that it's still out there, so we do appreciate that. And anyone who wants to join us on Wednesdays, we do record the Storytime episodes live on twitch.tv/scaryish or youtube.com/scaryish. And those are really fun days. We get to sit around and read these stories that you folks have sent us and get some feedback immediately from the community who talk in the chat, which normally doesn't make the episodes, but it's really a good time. So if you have some time, come and check us out again, 6:30 p.m., and that's the West Coast time on Wednesdays, and it's fun stuff. So we hope to see you there, but that said, let's jump into the normal way we start our shows, which is with some homegrown horrors. So Robin, what is a homegrown horror?
So homegrown horrors are tales, stories of your paranormal/spiritual experiences and weird things that have happened to you or your friends or family that you guys are gracious enough to share with us.
Indeed. We like stuff like coincidences as well, or things that weren't actually scary. They just seemed that way in the first place. Those wind up being just knee-slapping hoots.
Knee-slapping hoots?
I don't know where that phrase came from, but I have a feeling I'm going to dig that out when I'm older and just say it all the time. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started on those, and I will start, and this is a website submission we received from the website, and if you would like to go ahead and send us your stories, you can email storytime@scarish.com, which is our email address. You can go to our website, which is scarish.com, and click contact us and just fill out the form right there. You can also message us on Facebook, facebook.com/scarishpodcast, tweet at us @scarishpod, or Instagram us @scarishpodcast. And then you can also join our other things like the Scary Spooky Friends group, which is our Facebook group, from going to that same website. Or you could go to our Discord by going to our scarish.com website and clicking on the Discord link, and you'll be in that server. And it's really good times, and you can post your stuff there for some instant feedback as well. So that said, I will get into my story now. I already told you that the subject was website submission. I did that kind of out of order, but no big deal. NBD. So this one's subject is, I love you guys. Here's my homegrown horror. Oh, thank you. We love you too. And it starts out like this. Hi, David and Robin. Just gets funnier every time.
Oh, are they doing it on purpose at this point?
It says JK, ha 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 ha, in all caps. Hi, Adam and Robin. Sup? What's up?
What's up?
How you doing? I'm from Laguna, Philippines, and just recently found out about your podcast on Spotify last month.
Oh, cool.
Shout out to Spotify.
Shout out to the Philippines.
Indeed. I listen to you guys all the time when I travel and when I go to sleep. That's terrifying. I wouldn't listen to us when you're going to sleep. You guys are great, and I love you both. Here's my story. I was about 7 years old when this happened. Me, my brother, my sister, and my mother were at the dining room table.
It's not me, my brother, and me.
I hate you, but that'd be hilarious. We're in the dining room at the time, and recently just got the news from my father that my Lolo is the Filipino for grandfather, and the nickname of my grandfather was, it looks like Pingoy? I can't say this. Pinggoy. We're going to call him Grandpa P.
Okay.
So I'm sorry that I can't pronounce that. I don't want to butcher it and do a disservice. Had died after a serious heart attack. That's super sad. We were all saddened by the news, trying to talk about it while eating dinner. After eating, we just stayed quiet in the dining room and tried to reflect on what had happened. During these silent moments, my 2-year-old sister, B, pointed at our front door and said, Lolo, and said, and then this is actually written in Filipino, I think. I'm not sure what language this is, but I cannot say it, but they did put in a translation. It says, Grandpa, come in, which is
super creepy.
It is super creepy. We were all shook, looking at each other while B was talking to, apparently, the spirit of my Lolo. She added, and then this is more that I can't read, but then translation, Granddad, sit and eat. And while saying this, she was pushing the plate of rice to the edge of the table.
That's creepy.
We were scared AF, and we were all just looking at my sister. After some minutes, we talked to her and asked her who she was talking to. She said, and then I'm going to say Grandpa P. This is one of the scariest experiences of my life since I was just a kid back then, but when I'm thinking about it now, it was a happy moment. And I think that's cool too, because in the moment it totally would be really scary.
Right.
But looking back at it, it's like my grandpa came to visit us after he passed away. That's just kind of a sweet
thing. At the moment you're like, oh man, this is super creepy, but then afterwards you're just like super happy that he came, and
you just feel like he's still there with you. Getting back to the story, my sister was the favorite of my Lolo, and he would always look for her whenever we visited his home. It was just a way for Lolo to say goodbye to B. That's my story. I have some more stories to share, but I'll save them for next time. Thanks for listening. Well, thank you for sending that. That's a really good story, and that's exactly what we're talking about when we say stuff like spiritual, where it's like something like that happens that's totally unexplainable, and it happens to all different types of people all over the world.
Yeah.
And it is something that eventually becomes a really fond memory, even though it is really emotional and sometimes really scary when it first happens. So thank you for sending that in one more time. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
So right on. Do you want to move over into your homegrown horror?
Yep. So this one's titled Basement Weirdo and Feet Fetish Ghost.
Wow.
I'm super excited to know what's going to go on.
That is an intense subject line.
It begins, hello, Robin, also known as Robin Graves, and Adam.
Hello. I remember that nickname from like 2.5 months ago.
I sound like a badass.
Robin Graves.
Anyway, I'm messaging you from North Carolina with a story that's not mine, but is a story of one of the many blonde girls that I clean with.
That's hilarious.
That they've told me about. So that'll be interesting. I'm curious. This story is about a client from a cleaning company that I work in. There's this male client, and he calls in every month and requests only blonde women come and clean his home. Weird request, right?
I was going to say,
yes, that is absolutely weird.
This either sounds like a serial killer or the beginning of a pornography film. So
needs to make some extra cash on the side, I guess.
Right. I'm just saying, depending on how much they make, you might want to dye your hair blonde.
I'm a Mexican American and I have black hair. Therefore, I have never been. But all the girls have told me that he lives in a single-story home with a basement that he typically would lock the door to and would tell the girls not to worry about going down there.
Wow.
He's a fucking murderer.
It's clean enough. I use a lot of stuff to clean up the blood down there.
He's a murderer.
He sounds like a serial killer for sure. Or one of the people that kidnaps people and imprisons them. I don't know exactly what that's called.
Kidnapper?
Yeah, but like, isn't there a specific term for when you like trap someone and keep them forever? Or just keep them for a really long... Like, you don't have any intention of killing them. You're just, like, illegally detaining them.
We were just watching Inside the Criminal Mind, and we just watched the kidnapping episode, but I don't remember them saying anything about, like, what they're actually called.
I don't either.
Captors. I don't know. So one time, he forgot to lock the door to the basement, and a friend that works in the company named Nicole was cleaning his home after he left her cleaning the house. He had gone to go get groceries, and he said he'd be right back.
He's like, I live alone, but I'm buying for 3. Don't ask me why.
The fuck? He left, and my friend had tried to open the door to the basement and successfully opened it and went down. When she went down, guess what she saw? Bodies.
I'm going
to say bodies.
I'm guessing someone down there, like, chained up, like, let me out.
So the title is Basement Weirdo and Feet Fetish Ghost. So maybe feet?
Maybe a ghost looking at feet porno mags, if those exist. I don't know. This is curious. Keep going.
What a fucking weirdo. A room with a twin-size bed, a 6-year-old girl's clothing, and a camera facing the bed.
That's terrifying.
That's fucked up.
I didn't even let my mind go to possible pedophilia. Yeah, that's disgusting.
This is what? My friend's reaction was so professional. My friend got herself back upstairs as soon as possible and closed the door, finished cleaning the place like normal, got out of the client's house, and emailed the owner of the company to never send her back there again.
Hopefully also called the cops.
Yeah.
Because that is definitely something police need to look into.
It's some weird shit, dude. The other story is about a happening that occurred in my parents' vacation home in Mexico. My grandma was staying over visiting us while we were on vacation. I was 10 at the time, and she was sleeping in the guest room downstairs. This house is a 2-story home. She was between being awake and asleep, and she felt someone grabbing her feet.
Oh, shit.
These are the stories of my friend and my grandmother. I love listening to you guys. You make my work life easier. I've been listening since the Chupacabra and the La Pascualita. So you've been listening for quite a while, because I think Chupacabra's
Chupacabra is definitely early
episode
on.
3 or something.
Yeah, super early on.
So thank you so much for being with us this whole entire time.
Hopefully you're still there.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into fun story time.
Right on. And I'm guessing I'm going first since I read the first email.
Yes.
Right on. So this week I was inspired by a friend, like I had mentioned, who's a friend of ours and a friend of the show. Our friend Ralph just had a birthday pass, so happy birthday to Ralph. And don't worry, I'm not going to sing, but for those of you listening out there, just go ahead and say out loud, happy birthday, Ralph. And he will hear you.
Spirit bomb.
Exactly. I literally just wrote on here, kind of like Goku charging a spirit bomb. Yeah. So he will take your energy and it will sustain him. But now that that's done, I hope at least one person, by the way, out there just screamed it out really loud and everyone looked at you like, what is wrong with that person? But let me get to why he's the inspiration for this topic. Well, we've mentioned him before and that he should come on the show. So when we saw him for his birthday this past week, we were trying to plan a time he could join us and tell us some of his really good stories. And he let us know that he's taking a vacation very soon. And he's going down Mexico way, if you know that song. And while he's there,
what song is that?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it's just called Mexico Way. But while he's there, he's going to visit a particularly creepy place. The place is known as La Isla de las Muñecas. And I'm not going to say that again. I'm going to refer to it as the Island of the Dolls, which is what most of the stuff that I read anyways refers to it as. So the Island of the Dolls is located just south of Mexico City. So Mexico City is obviously one of the bigger metropolises in Mexico, and it's located just south of it. I don't know if it's actually still within the city limits of it, but it's extremely close.
All right.
And for those of you who want to go on a tour, most of the operators of boats and like other floating vehicles nearby are willing to take you. So they do have tours and the like, which we know since Ralph said he's going. He's going to go visit the Island of the Dolls. So there are some residents of the surrounding area who refuse to go there, though.
Okay.
So why is that? Like, sure, dolls are creepy, but like, what's the story behind this island that is covered in dolls? Well, unlike some of the things we cover here on Scary-ish, we don't have an exact date when this all began. But like any good urban legend, we do have some vague dates and hazy motivations.
Okay.
So the mid-1900s is when our story begins, and a man named Julian Santana Barrera is leading a fairly normal life in Mexico City when, for unknown reasons, he decided to leave his wife and his children.
He left his whole family?
He just left his family. And now normally, like when you hear about a guy abandoning his family, they usually travel to a different part of the world, like far enough away to start a new life. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like we call it the dream. Side note, totally kidding. But Julian, who is typically called Don Julian, did not do this. In fact, he didn't travel very far. He was a resident of Mexico City. And he decided that he needed to relocate himself to an uninhabited island on Tesuelo Lake. And it's speculated that this guy was like a little off. Which,
it's like someone told him in his head, like, you need to do this.
I don't think he actually said someone told him, and that's why the motivations are kind of unclear. They just know that he was compelled to do it. So he decided like he was leaving his family and he was going to go live on this island. And like moving to an island all by yourself would definitely indicate that you might be a little off. So upon arrival, he basically makes this island his new home. There's a shack on the island. Couldn't find out whether or not it was already there or he built it for himself, but there is like a small place to stay. It is not very big. It's like the size of a single room in a home.
What?
But that would be where he'd wind up spending most of his life. He straight up just bailed from his family and society to just live in this place. So he wasn't there very long before another event that we cannot confirm takes place. And upon exploring his new home, he discovered the body of a young girl, and she had apparently drowned. So it's probably a very emotional and very jarring thing to discover the body of a child, and she had passed away, and it was so impactful on him that it would change his life. And this is another contested fact of this story, is whether or not Don Julian actually found this body, but it was real enough to him that what happened next essentially became his life's work. So after recovering the dead girl's body, he noticed something floating in the water, traveling down one of the island's many waterways, which are either canals or streams or rivers or whatever you want to call them. He saw a doll floating in the water, which is a really creepy thing to see after discovering the body of a girl, you know, because it's like probably her toy.
I was going to say it probably belonged to her
Exactly.
or something like that.
So he recovered it and decided that in order to do like one of two or maybe even both of these things, in order to honor the girl and protect himself / the island from evil spirits, he would hang the doll in a tree, which he did.
Who does that?
So here's the other thing, too. Some people say that he believed that demons were trying to take away that girl's soul or spirit, and that was for some reason trapped on the island with him. And he was convinced that hanging this doll was a way to keep them at bay and protect the girl's soul or spirit.
That's weird.
So it's like, clearly, again, stuff lending itself to maybe he's just a little off. And at this point in the story, I imagine he looked up at this doll hanging in the tree and thought to himself, like, that looks pretty friggin' sweet. Like, I wonder what a couple more would look like. Probably spruce this place right up. So he got more. He got a lot more. And when I said that he decided to make this island his new home, like, that didn't mean he never left it. Yeah, it's his home, but, like, you leave your home every now and then, you know? He went
to go shopping.
Yeah, he would leave his
that.
island to go into town and stuff. So he'd run errands and stuff like that. And while he was in town, he would look through the trash to find, you guessed it,
through the trash,
more dolls. He can't afford anything. No one's going to buy stuff from him because he's bringing, like, leaves and driftwood.
Okay.
You know, he doesn't have, like, currency, which I'll get to later. That's also not all he did when he was in town. At this time, it was the 1950s, and Don Julian would preach about Jesus. And when you think about it, like, this is a guy who abandoned his family to live alone on an island and that comes to town to pick through garbages for dolls and talk about Jesus on the street. You'd probably think he was crazy too. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this guy does sound very crazy. But people didn't want to hear what he had to say about JC. And because of that, he was assaulted multiple times. He got the shit beat out of him because of his preaching. And he would still go back to his island, take the stuff that he got back to his island, and come back and do it all over again. And I'm sure that this dude somehow acquired food to sustain himself. I couldn't find anything about his early days about how he found food. I just imagine he went fishing on that island all the time, or he like hunted for wildlife.
He must have.
Because if you're on a lake, I mean, you're a single person. You're not going to fish that lake out, you know? And you only need so much to sustain yourself. But during this time on the island, he never found another corpse. But one thing he did find floating in the water many times was more dolls. And for a person who's
floating in the water,
who's living, because I mean, there's just trash in this fucking water, and he's just finding dolls over and over again. So he'd go into town, dig through the trash, and find them. He'd also find them floating in the water. And for someone who's spending all their time on an island, like, this is a lot of time to look in the water for discarded objects, you know? And he'd take the dolls and he'd hang them on trees and other places. Basically anywhere he could hang these dolls, he would. Any dolls he could recover, he'd hang around this island. And since he wasn't finding these dolls in the best of places, you can imagine the shape of some of them. And we've been posting our topic episodes. Every time the episode comes out, we post to Instagram and let all our Instagram followers know, hey, the episode dropped. For topic episodes specifically, we also post some pictures to accompany whatever topic we covered. And I will definitely be posting a couple of things, mainly of the shack and some of the dolls that this guy had around this island.
Sweet.
Because they're just crazy creepy looking. Some would be complete dolls that are just a little bit worse for the wear. And some of them are like pieces of dolls, so they're not complete, like just a torso and a head. Sometimes they're missing limbs, most either wearing tattered clothing or nothing at all. And for the dolls that have hair, it's just this terrifying mess. It looks like a cobweb on top of their head, just in a different color.
What the fuck?
Because, I mean, they're old and they're just in really, really bad shape. And on top of that, they're on this island where they're being worn out by the sun, and they've been there for a really long time. And this didn't just go on for a few months or a few years or even a few decades. This went on for 50 years.
He lived there for 50 years.
He lived there for 50 years and populated this really small island with all the dolls he could find. So if you're living anywhere for 50 years and you're dedicated, like it's your mission in life, to digging dolls out of the trash, you can imagine you're going to collect a lot over the course of 50 years.
Right.
That is a long time. So you're probably thinking, man, this guy must have been insane, like just straight up batshit crazy. Well, maybe. But he was also apparently really, really nice. Like people who would come to the island to see what it was all about, he'd take them on tours. And he'd tell people like where he found some of the dolls. Like, I remember finding that doll there. I remember finding that doll somewhere else. He'd have names for some of them.
Where he got all of
yeah,
them.
he did.
Wow.
Like, he wasn't so crazy where he wasn't lucid. You know, he could talk about things like what his experiences were with what was on his island. And people would go and see him because it was like almost like a novelty. People weren't really super terrified of him, and he'd show them into his shack, which was of course covered in dolls. And I say that like it's out of place because this island is just absolutely covered in dolls. And so many of them, when I'm looking at these pictures, just did not have eyes. Like, they had the absence of eyes,
Yeah.
like the holes that just like peer into darkness, into this doll, into the plastic skull that holds their horrible evil thoughts.
What the
But
fuck?
the ones that do have eyes, it's more like that piece that was once the eyeball that was like painted, obviously, that's like faded out, so they have like no color, or it's like a really dark tone, so it just looks like a horrifying visage of what a decayed person would look like if they're like still, you know, like tiny and chubby and cherubic and also haunting and horrifying at the same time. And they're
solid descriptors.
They're all over this island. And like I said earlier, like, how did this guy make any money or buy food? Did he just like hunt and fish for all of his meals? Well, no. People would go to visit him because they heard of him, they knew of him, and it wasn't exactly the tourist attraction it is today. But when they went there, he was very welcoming to those who visited the island. And believe it or not, some people actually wanted a keepsake from their visit. So in exchange for one of the island dolls, they would go there and be like, I want one of these things that you've collected. They would trade him a new doll to replace the old one and food.
Wow.
People would actually trade this guy fruits and vegetables for the dolls he had found in the garbage that had been there for years, in some cases decades, or he had found them floating in the streams, like discarded into the water around or on the island.
That's really good for him.
It is, and it's something that like sustained him, and people like really wanted to go visit this place. But Don Julian, or Julian, I just keep saying Julian because I softened the J, I don't know why, kept two dolls in his shack. I hate you so much. Kept two dolls in his shack, specifically that were like his keepsakes. The first doll he had ever found, which is the doll that he had hung on the tree where the little girl had been found, and his favorite doll. And when you look this up, Wikipedia says her name is Augustinita, and that is not accurate. A story that was written on Vice actually has a picture of Don Julian, and they went down there and they explored this place when he was still alive. And we'll have that picture on our Instagram as well. And
cool.
He claimed that his favorite doll's name was actually Monec, Monec. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he would like sleep with it too.
What?
And it's this picture. The picture on there is like of this very, very old man sleeping with a doll, and it is like so surreal and sad to look at. So like when I'm doing this research on this, thinking I'm gonna find like this horrifying horror story, which is just redundant to say.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's this story of this guy who like seems very lonely and sad, but was somehow fulfilled by finding all these dolls. And for whatever reason, this one was his favorite. It's one of these things where while I'm doing the research, I'm like, I really wish I could have talked to this guy.
To figure out what was going on.
Yeah, just to get an idea of like certain things, like why is that one your favorite? Because of all the research I've done, and there's so much stuff written about him, I can't find it anywhere. It's like no one thought to ask human things. They thought to ask like, wow, you're really bizarre.
Yeah, like the paranormal. Like
yeah,
the
and it's like,
stuff,
dude, like this is an incredible study in human behavior. Even though he was so, let's be real, like he was scummy. He abandoned his family and his wife, his kids, but he wound up doing this thing for 50 years. And I just don't know what a person's mindset would be like to have all those dolls and be like, but this one's my favorite. There's a story behind that,
Right.
So the other thing that was in his hut were newspaper clippings of all the coverage he'd gotten over the years that he'd collected, which is like a weird shrine, almost like a reminder to himself that what he was doing was getting recognition. It's not even like he's getting praise. It's just that people are noticing what he's done, and he's taken those clips like anyone would do, and instead of putting it in a scrapbook where you can go back and remember these things, he put it up on the wall. And it's so weird because it's like, this dude must be crazy when you hear all these things he's doing, but like, where are all the articles written about us normal people? People don't write articles about normal people who wake up and do their day-to-day work unless it's an obituary. That's mostly all people normally get. Side note, yeah, that got really dark. But it's for a transition because in 2001, roughly 50 years after all of this began, Don Julian passed away. And he was found, of course, on the island.
Who found him? Like
someone visiting the island found his body. So remember how he always said that he had found the body of the little girl, and What's shocking about that story is that even his own family didn't believe it was true.
Because where would he take her or
Exactly.
bury her?
But what's funny is when I read family didn't even think it was true, I was like, is it like his brothers and sisters, or do you mean his wife and kids? Because his wife and kids probably don't believe anything he has to say.
Yeah,
so it's
but
like,
I mean, it's been 50 years.
It's been a long time, and their anger is absolutely justified. So his story did remain consistent for his entire life, though, including the location of where he had found that little girl. So why do I mention this? Of course, because that location of where he found the little girl is exactly where his body was found.
Shut up.
He was 80 years old when he died.
Wow.
He lived on that island from the age of 30 till the age of 80. So one last creepy detail about his death. Do you know what the cause of death was?
Drowning?
Drowning.
Shut
He
up.
drowned. He didn't die of old age. He didn't die of a heart attack. None of that. He died of drowning. And he
Oh
was
my
found in the
goodness.
exact spot he said that little
What are
girl's
the
body had been
odds?
found. That is a part that really creeps people out. And as a side note, that is completely true. It's not a joke. And the dolls are still there. In fact, there at this point are more dolls there now than at the time of Don Julian's death.
So people are just coming and adding
Because,
extra.
yeah, locals and tourists bring them and hang them on the island in remembrance of him and of the little girl's spirit who he was protecting. Because some people think, like, maybe he was right, you know? And who's going to do that now that he's gone? If that little girl's spirit is trapped on the
Yeah.
island, being hunted by these demons, like, someone has to be there for it. And how much does it cost to go there, you might be asking, if you're sitting there like, I have a doll I can get rid of. Well, whatever it would cost to get you to Mexico City. That said, you can get a full tour of the area, not just this island and other things that are there to see. And there's a lot of stuff that's very beautiful down there. And that tour that would include that roughly costs, and for what I can find for just about every different price, because there's a bunch of stuff out there, $50 to $75.
Wow, that's so cheap.
It's like $10 to $15 an hour for this tour, and they typically last like 4 hours. So it's definitely affordable if you're ever in this area. And I mean, I'm saying that, and we know Ralph's going, so I'm going to ask him so many questions when he gets back, because I really do want to know about this place. But my first reaction to hearing him say he was going there was pretty standard. I straight up told him, if you disappear, man, I'm not going to come looking for you. Because it's like, why would I travel to such a haunted place?
Yeah, but he also did say he was going to have like a treasure map on him or something too.
Ralph says that he always travels with a treasure map on his body. And I was like, well, I guess you've thought the system through, because I clearly need to come and get that treasure map off your body.
It's going to be like National Treasure.
I don't remember that movie well enough to say yes or no. He steals the Declaration of Independence, though, right? He's not recovering a map off of a dead body. Or does that happen in the beginning?
The map is on the back of the Declaration of Independence. But it's
Okay.
like Ralph's map could lead to like this clue and then this clue and then this clue.
So you're saying Ralph's an Illuminati. It all makes sense now.
Perhaps.
Well, since doing the research, I've actually discovered that the locals of the area don't think that this island is haunted or cursed. They actually think that it's a charmed place, which is pretty cool. Because, what, you have something to say?
I'm just like charmed as in magical, or...
It's not like you're going to go there and you're going to get like Dragon Ball Z powers. It's just a good place. It's almost like a shrine of goodness. I don't know what else to call it.
All right.
And it's not surprising that like television shows that have traveled there don't really mention this. And if they do, it's briefly in passing, because they want to make it seem like it's a horrific location. And I mean, like, it's clearly a charming vacation destination.
Oh, super
Because
charming.
it's just a shack covered in fucking like decaying dolls. But that said, there are some other things they say about the island and about these dolls in particular that I would be remiss if I did not mention them. A few things are that several people close to Don Julian claimed that he believed the dolls he recovered and take back to the island were actually inhabited by the souls of other deceased girls.
What?
And locals and tourists claim some pretty creepy things as well. So it's said that the eyes, or the lack thereof, will follow visitors of the island. So if you're walking around, you can feel their eyes on you, and if you look, they're always looking at you. So I kind of understand that, though, because sometimes they make eyes look as if they're always looking at you no matter where you are. Like, you could walk around the room, but just the way that they're made, like the photography of it or whatever, always makes it look like they're looking directly at you. They say that people have noticed on occasion that the dolls move their heads on their own.
That is creepy.
That is creepy. However, wind can do that, or simply gravity or something decaying. I guarantee you at least one person has visited and a doll's head has moved. I'm not
like
saying
a
it's because of
bug
a
or
demon.
something inside.
I would think more or less like sometimes, like if the doll has a movable head, like it's been so like weathered that eventually it just loses like friction and just goes. And then of course the ones that are actually possessed by demons that are staring at people.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
So pretty creepy. Something to keep in mind if you ever go. Another thing that people claim to have experienced, and this one is the creepiest, is the sound of voices whispering to each other on this uninhabited island, which are supposed to be the voices of the dolls.
Yeah, I was
talking
gonna
to
say
each
like
other,
it's the dolls talking.
which I'm sure is total bullshit, and I will absolutely never go down there to confirm that. So tourist guides even claim, and it's probably so they can get more money, but they
I
claim
like your
that
finger, your money symbols.
indeed, they claim that the dolls have been known to come to life and climb down from their spots at night.
That's some evil Toy Story stuff.
I was gonna say
right
it sounds evil, but it does sound very Toy Story. But it's so bizarre to me because this is one of those places that I think people try and make into a horrific place to visit. And it's like one of the macabre things that you should totally go check out, but it can't just be that. It has to be like, no, this place is also like evil. But other people take offerings to these dolls. They bring them things and they pray for good fortune or blessings or miracles to like a dirty plastic doll that for some reason represents something to them that they put their faith into. And some locals even visit the island simply to change the clothes of the dolls to keep them maintained and like looking nice. And it's understandable because this is seen as a tourist destination. And like realistically, we're talking about an island from an objective standpoint that is the site of a man's death and is covered with a bunch of dirty dolls. And we're talking about it on our show right now. So it clearly, at the very least, generates revenue for the people of that area.
Yeah.
So they are going to want to take care of it, but they take care of it to an extent where it's not just them maintaining a tourist destination, it's them showing it a form of reverence that you just don't see in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to me that I started doing this, like, man, this place has got to be so evil. It's covered with creepy dolls. And the more I read about it, I'm like, this is a really, like, people respect this place. And they really do feel like this is a good place, which is so bizarre because 50, at this point it's 70, like 70 years ago, it was the site of someone who everyone was like, that crazy dude left his family to go live on an island.
Yeah.
So it's just this very weird way that we look at things. And depending on your perspective, this can seem like the most evil place or it could seem like a really good place. And it's really cool to get the idea of what the locals think of it.
It's a nice twist on it because normally everything that I've seen is like scariest places to go.
Yeah, and it's up there. It's on all the sites where it's like the most haunted places in the world. And
in a world.
Maybe it was never really the site of a little girl's death. Maybe he hallucinated it or imagined it or just made it up. But whatever it was a place where a man who was a little off his rocker called his home, and he truly devoted himself to maintaining the island. And the way he thought to do that was to keep the island like floor clean, like to make sure there was no debris or trash.
Yeah.
But he would put these dolls everywhere, and there are dolls all over the place. Like the pictures are astounding. And he's gone now. Like, he passed away on the island he stayed on for 50 years and drowned, no less, which is creepy. And if you were to ask me, like, Adam, like, how do you make a haunted island? I would probably have a couple answers. We talked about that topic where, like, the topsoil of that one island out in Italy is like 50% human ash. Like, that's a really good way to make a haunted island. I would probably also mention creating a shrine of dolls over the course of 50 years by one person who has to be completely devoted to it and believe in it so deeply that there were spirits on this island, and then also have him die on that island. That's a pretty good start to making a haunted island, because whether or not there's a little girl spirit there, there's an old man spirit there now. I'm just saying.
Wow, okay.
But this is really one of those things where it depends on your perspective. Yes, these dolls are terrifying to look at, and I totally understand why people would think this is a dark place. But at the same time, knowing the history of it, I also understand why some people would and do call it charmed. And there is no denying that this place charmed, and you have to curtsy too. But there is no denying that this place would be creepy to visit, but hopefully it's not too scary when it gets visited, because there is a really interesting and not evil story behind it. And I'm going to categorize this one as scary-ish.
Oh.
Yeah, I literally put, ha, 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 fuck you, I hate myself. And that is the end of my script. But I really did enjoy doing the research for this one. And I really hope that when we have Ralph on, he can talk to us about the Island of the Dolls.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I am really interested to know, and hopefully he doesn't bring one back with him.
Oh, yeah,
he said he had a... Oh, I'm not going to give away his plan.
Yeah.
But it's really, really evil and devious, and I love it. I love every minute of it, and I hope he doesn't execute it on us.
Don't execute it on us.
Please don't. But yeah, that is the Island of the Dolls, and I hope you enjoyed that. There's been a lot of TV shows that have gone there. Ghost Adventures, the Sci-Fi one, the History Channel one.
The BuzzFeed Unsolved.
BuzzFeed Unsolved went there, and I'm just like... Well, if everyone gets to go, why aren't we going? And it's like, oh, yeah, we're a podcast. That's probably why. But, yeah, it's a very interesting place. And if you're ever in the Mexico City area, give it a shot. You won't spend too much money, but you might have a fun experience. At the very least, you'll definitely have a creepy experience. So
you'll have a scary-ish experience.
Indeed. I wasn't going to do it twice in one episode. But that's everything I have. So I understand that you're going to be going over some creepypastas, Robin.
Yep. Yeah, so the next topic that I'm going to do was, again, chosen by all our patrons.
Woot woot. Shout out to our $3 and above patrons. Choose your own adventure.
Go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast if you guys want to be a part of the future polls. But I had a poll up there last week, and the winning vote was for creepypasta. So creepypasta is what you shall have.
Well, here's the thing, Robin. Explain what a creepypasta is, because as unbelievable as it might be, and I don't consume a lot of scary-ish type content, I had no idea what a creepypasta was until we started our show, and someone basically told me that they thought our entire show was fake by calling it a creepypasta.
Well, creepypastas are stories that have originated on the internet. People write in just stories that they've made up that are just...
They're fictional.
They're fictional.
They're just fictional horror stories, which I think it's a nice short story. I think it's a really good writing exercise. Yeah. So and I didn't realize Slender Man was one to start out.
I can't believe you didn't know Slender Man was one.
Well, that's the thing. I heard of Slender Man when those little girls killed another girl in the name of Slender Man.
I've watched
and I was like, who the hell is Slender Man?
There's like a web series that is where it like originated.
I watched the first season of that. I got to the second season, and it was like two people in a hotel and like hotel rooms next to each other, and I got so bored.
Yeah, it's really boring.
I was just like, I'm gonna watch something else.
But yeah, so creepypastas are along the lines of Slender Man and stuff like that. So we've covered one before. We covered the Russian sleep experiment. That was also a creepypasta. But this episode, I'm gonna start like a creepypasta series, I suppose. So this is creepypasta 1, and we'll probably have like creepypasta 2, 3, whatever down the line.
So the other one was creepypasta the awakening, or creepypasta creation.
Yeah. So that was just like the OG. Anyway, the first story that I'm going to cover is based on one of my favorite creatures in Doctor Who, the Weeping Angel.
That's cool.
So if you guys have never watched Doctor Who, watch Blink. It is probably my favorite, absolute.
And barely has the Doctor in
it. It doesn't even have it. It hasn't been for like not even 5 minutes.
Yep. Shout out to David Tennant. David Tennant started a new podcast that Robin told me about. I was slightly skeptical, and then we listened to an episode. I'm like, okay, it's really, really good. Yeah.
His podcast is called David Tennant Does a Podcast.
Such a clever name.
And
I can't pull that shit off. We're not nearly any form of famous, so we can't just be like, Adam and Robin start a podcast with blah.
So the next one is with Jodie Whittaker, so I'm really excited. Anyway,
who's the new Doctor, correct?
Yes. So anyway, this one is called The Weeping Angel. When I came across this story, I was super excited because I absolutely love the Weeping Angels. I'd never read this story before. I'd never heard of it before, so I totally squealed when it popped up.
Does the story go into the background of the Weeping Angels at all, or is it like dependent on you knowing what they're like?
It's based off the Weeping Angels, but you don't necessarily have to have watched Doctor Who or anything like that.
So I'll do just a super small quick recap because I'm fairly new to the Doctor Who fandom, like 5 or 6 years into it. But Weeping Angels are essentially statues that look like angels that when you look away from them, they can move towards you. And if you're looking at them, they remain in statue form. So it's just a statue that like slowly moves closer and closer.
Right, but this story is not like that.
Okay.
So it's based off of them, but it's not like the same physics of them.
Okay. I thought it might follow those rules that people might need to know.
Okay, yeah, no.
It's just a really clever idea because if you're shooting an episode and you have like 2 statues of an angel, one where it's covering its face and one where its face is super terrifying, all you really have to do is just have someone look away and then look back and like cut the shot and then just go outside and move the fucking statue closer. That's all you have to do. So, okay, keep going.
Okay. This one goes like this. Recently, in 2011, I moved into a house with my wife, Isabella. We were expecting a baby in November, so we had to make sure everything was right. We met with the estate agent who greeted us with what seemed like a very happy face, as if we'd been gone for ages. He shook my hand and took us to the house. When we arrived, the house looked very modern. It was luxury. It had a large back garden with all the garden gnomes and the statues. I asked him about those statues, and he looked confused. I never noticed them, he said. Just ignore them. The owner will probably come and collect them. I walked through the front door and noticed something was off. A pigeon was in the house. It had made a nest in the front room, and now the house looked very disturbing and old. My wife, being a very strange woman, told me that pigeons in the house were a very bad omen. We spoke.
I like your creepypasta voice. It's different than your normal voice.
Thank you. We spoke with the estate agent and asked if we could check the other 2 houses we wanted to look at. I've never heard of pigeons being a bad omen before. Ravens, crows, yes, but
yeah,
pigeons?
I've never heard of pigeons being in your. Maybe just a bird being in your house is a sign that your house has an opening that a bird can fly into.
Right.
That would, I guess, be a bad omen. It'd be like flicking a switch and then the light bulb exploding.
But,
it's like that's a bad omen. Yeah, it's a sign of bad.
So the beginning of the story is like the house is super modern, it's luxury, it's pretty, and then
you go inside and it's old and dilapidated.
Old. It's like, what the fuck? Please go watch Blink. It's so good. Anyway, continuing on. As we left the house, I noticed one of the statues had moved its hands from its face. It had a blank expression, but I couldn't look long as the estate agent nudged me to move onward as he came out of the door.
You're trying to sell a house? Don't nudge me, bro.
Right. We walked away and checked the other 2 houses. The second house looked better. I could actually see into the windows, as the previous one had the blinds down. There's something wrong with that house if all the blinds are down when you're trying to show it.
Yeah.
You know what
Doesn't
I mean?
make any. You want the natural light to come in. I mean, Jonathan and Drew Scott would not let you buy that house. Just saying.
I could already see a mirror and a golden cup on the sideboard.
Choose wisely.
I had high hopes for this house. We opened the front door and noticed one of the statues in the garden again. But I paid no attention to it. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you pay attention to it? It's a fucking statue.
Maybe you just think it's just, everyone has these same statues. They must be really popular here.
Super popular. We went upstairs to the master bedroom. My wife sat on the bed and laid on it to test it. She said it was comfy. I've never done that before, ever. Like going to see houses.
You never laid on someone else's bed?
I've never laid on someone else's bed. I think that's an invasion of privacy.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, realistically, they're not. Unless they're including the furniture with their house, there's really no reason to try out someone's furniture in the house.
Right.
Unless you're pregnant and you want to get off your feet, which may be the reason. But I don't know. This is fake. But let's just keep going. We're speculating on people that don't exist.
Right.
So we're really just criticizing the writing at this point.
I'll buy it, I said. Oh, sure, the real estate agent said, sounding shocked. I smiled gladly, and we went downstairs. Stupid me, I thought, wanting to buy it without even seeing the downstairs. We went into the front room, and there was a statue of Cupid with a small scythe in its hand. It wasn't moving, it was just there. Can we get this removed? My wife doesn't like it, I asked. How do you know? We haven't even had that conversation between you and your wife.
How do you know that your wife doesn't like it? You didn't tell us in the story. And not to mention, Cupid with a scythe is pretty badass.
I think that is badass.
That's like, you're going to fall in love or you're going to die.
You're going to like it. How about the kitchen? The agent said, trying to direct the conversation to something else.
Side note, has anyone ever said, I'll buy it when referring to a house?
No.
Yeah, it's just not natural dialogue.
I'm going to come back with an offer that's $10,000 lower than what you're selling
you negotiate,
it for.
like, what are they asking, all that other stuff. It's not a candy bar. You're not like, I'll buy it.
I saw one of the angel statues again in the garden, hugging another statue.
That's sweet.
Another statue stood behind them both, playing a harp. Can we remove all these statues? I asked. I think they are better off here, the agent said. Ouch, the baby's kicking, my wife exclaimed. It's okay, calm down, I told her. I looked back up to see the statues hugging each other, both standing up. The other statue was looking at us. I looked behind me to see the Cupid statue had moved. I looked back, the angels got closer. as did the Cupid. "What the hell is happening?" I yelled. I turned to find one of the statues right in front of Isabella. It had its eyes fixated on her. I took Isabella by the hand and ran out of the house. I noticed the real estate agent had disappeared, so I shakily dialed his phone number. He didn't respond. We ran into the streets and saw the angels chasing us. And then it goes 2 years later.
So, okay, are the angels like every time you look back, they're getting closer? Or
no, that's why I'm saying I think the physics are different because they saw the angels chasing them.
Yeah, at this point, it's like, are they like running and it's just like.
2 years later, I'm now living happily with my wife. She seems to be counting down right now, next to me in the rocking chair. Oh, I have chills. Sorry.
Really?
Yeah, because if you watched the episode with Matt Smith as the doctor with Amy, her counting down is the angels about to take over. You know, she's like counting down like 10, 9, 8.
I don't remember that.
Oh my gosh.
That's the Byzantium or whatever, right?
Yeah, where it's like the image of an angel
becomes an
angel. And so she like is like, man, there's sand in my eye or something. And she's randomly having a conversation with everyone. Then she'll be like, ha ha ha, 10. And like keep talking. And she'll be like randomly like 9. And Matt Smith is like, why are you counting? What is this? What's going on? And so that's why I have chills, because I am super Doctor Who nerd. And
I was going to say, yeah, the context still doesn't do it for me. I'm still not remembering what that's meant to represent. Is like the countdown to me doesn't mean much, so.
Okay, yeah, the countdown, once it gets to 0, the angel's taken over.
Taken her over?
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, she started feeling like she couldn't move? Like she's like, I can't move my hand or whatever.
I just remember her keeping her eyes on the angel on the TV screen because it's slowly coming out of the TV screen. I don't really remember her turning into one, so.
Yeah, we need to watch it again because it's such a good episode. I just love Doctor Who. Any Doctor Who episode's good, whatever. Anyway, so she seems to be counting down right now next to me in the rocking chair. I've asked her to stop, but she won't. I guess she's just stressed. We live with my friend Bill. He's a nice guy, but he is a bit odd. I sure hope that the baby's okay because... And it cuts off. So that it's like he's in the middle of like a thought and it's just like... Meh. And then it goes into a police report.
Wow.
And so the police report goes... The bodies of 2 men and a woman have been found. The investigation on Taverley Street will close down the entire city. A strange killer's on the loose, it seems. Stay indoors, lock up, and keep your expensive things out of sight. This is classified as an urban attack. Please stay indoors. You may be killed on sight. So
never once written in a police report, right? You may be killed on sight.
This one, admittedly, is not as terrifying as a lot of creepypastas I've read are. It's really cool, like fun for Doctor Who fans, like a good like fandom nod. At least for me, because I've actually watched the episodes and know what goes on.
Kind of a fandom nod. I mean, it doesn't really strictly stick to the rules set forth by the fandom or by the show itself.
It's just fun fan fiction, and I personally enjoyed its novelty. I liked it. And I get that you are not really a Doctor Who fan.
I am a Doctor Who fan, though. It's just odd to me when it's like we're gonna include this countdown reference, and it's just like, okay, well, that's not a detail that I really remembered from it. I remember the big details of the angels, but at the same time, I don't know. There's a lot about this one. Her
counting down is a big detail.
It's not to me. And like I remember the first episode. I remember Blink, and and the angels take Manhattan. I remember that too.
That's way later, though.
I know, but it's still like the counting down thing is like one single thing in a single episode versus like the things where they like freeze when you look at them being the consistent thing where it's like don't blink or they'll move forward. So I don't know, like turning around and seeing the angels running after them. I'm just saying 3 out of 10 would still bang again. Low standards.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. It's fun. It's shout out to all my super nerd friends out there. But this next one is called The Girl in the Photograph, and I personally love this one.
Does it start out with someone going, look at this photograph?
Every time I do it makes me laugh. No, it's not funny. So, this one kind of creeped me out a little bit, but I was like, but there are holes. This one goes, one school day, a boy named Tom was sitting in class and doing math. It was 6 more minutes until after school, As he was doing his homework, something caught his eye. His desk was next to the window, and he turned and looked to the grass outside. It looked like a picture. When school was over, he ran to the spot where he saw it. He ran fast so that no one else could grab it. He picked it up and smiled. It had a picture of the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. She had a dress with tights on and red shoes, and her hand was formed into a peace sign. She was so beautiful he wanted to meet her, so he ran all over school and asked everyone if they knew her or have ever seen her before. But everyone he asked said no, and he was devastated. When he was home, he asked his older sister if she knew the girl, but unfortunately, she also said no. It was very late, so Tom walked upstairs, placed the picture on his bedside table, and went to sleep.
Cursed object.
In the middle of the night, Tom was wakened by a tap on the window. It was like a nail tapping. He got scared. After the tapping, he heard a giggle. He saw a shadow near his window, so he got out of bed, walked toward his window, opened it up, and followed the giggling.
Stupid. You're stupid. You're going to die. If we were doing a live episode, I'd be putting up the why though thing right now.
By the time he reached it, it was gone. The next day, again, he asked his neighbors if they knew her. Everybody said sorry, no. When his mother came home, he even asked her if she knew her. She said no. So he went to his room, placed the picture on his desk, and fell asleep. Once again, he was awakened by tapping. He took the picture and followed the giggling. He walked across the road when suddenly he got hit by a car. He was dead. He was dead with the picture in his hand. The driver got out of the car and tried to help him, but it was too late. Suddenly, he saw the picture and picked it up. He saw a cute girl holding up 3 fingers.
That's good.
Right?
That's really good.
I was like, that is so good.
That's a good ending.
I really liked that one a lot.
I was hoping his last words would be, look at this holy prayer.
But then I was like, oh, this is really good. But then I was like, well, what happens when she runs out of fingers? Like, she's just going to be standing there holding up jazz hands.
She can collect 10, and then after that, her mission is finished.
She's got to take her little red shoes off or whatever and show her toes.
Right, that one was really good. I really
like that one. I just like the ones that are just going through motions, and then at the end it's like, big twist.
I'm not sure if I like the big twist ones. That was like, I think that's a little twist.
Okay.
You know, because you think it's a cursed object the whole time, you know?
Right.
And the little twist is like, it's just like, yep, did it again. So
yeah,
I like that one. I like that one a lot better, actually.
Okay.
So that was a good one. It's like, it's not too up its own ass. You know what I mean? It's not too like, oh, I put some counting in there for you. No, this one was a really good one. I like that one.
Okay. So this next one is the last one for this episode and is titled Cosmetic Sesame. I'm going to say trigger warning for those people that have a fear of like holes in your skin and stuff. I know that's actually a thing. I forget what it's called. It's like the phobia of like little like holes. I don't know. It's a thing. But this one makes me incredibly paranoid and like, whoa, like.
Great. Good one to end on.
Yeah. You can't see my thumbs up, but I did one. So.
Could you hear her thumbs up? It was like, wink.
So this one goes. A girl was worried about her skin getting old and wrinkled. Like any girl, right, would have that fear.
Some of them don't.
So
you're saying this is the story of a girl
who cried a river and drowned the whole world.
That would be a good prompt for a thing.
So this girl was the type of person that would try pretty much every method there is to make your skin better. She heard from someone that if you put sesame seeds in the water of your bath, it'll be good for your skin. The girl tried this method right away, but after a few hours in the bathtub, she was still not coming out of the bathroom, and she'd only say just a moment when someone tried to enter. Her mother grew suspicious and forced open the bathroom door, which had been locked. Then she saw that an innumerable amount of sesame seeds had lodged themselves into every small wrinkle and pore and had started to grow roots inside like her daughter's skin.
Wow.
Her daughter seemed like she had lost her mind and was frantically trying to remove the seeds with a toothpick, leaving just big pock holes where the seeds were.
Why not just become a dryad? You'd be so cool.
What's a dryad?
It's like a half plant, half person
thing.
My It's like a demigod.
Okay. but that's the end of that story.
That's the end?
Yeah.
Wow, that one was really abrupt.
It's really abrupt, but it's like it's supposed to paint a picture for you. At least for me.
You can't see the look on my face, but I'm very I'm very dubious at that painting a picture part.
I have a really big fear of big wounds, like holes, you know what I mean? And maybe I'll post a picture of something and on Instagram, but I probably won't because that picture is fucking gross.
Right.
But it's just like disgusting.
This is the thing about this one, is it's very short. There's no development of any characters whatsoever. It's like, here's a scenario. Creepy, right? And like, that's it. It would be like, there was this person who had a fear of notebooks and then fucking paper cuts everywhere. Everyone hates paper cuts. And it's like, this is just lazy writing. Just to quote Deadpool, this one's just lazy writing. Second one's the best.
I'm guilty of wanting to make sure that my skin is smooth and moisturized enough, and I always feel bad when I don't wash my face and like my skin gets all dry and I feel like a freaking lizard. But this one freaks me out because the idea of having something lodged in your skin all over your body, like imagine tiny little sesame seeds implanted like in your body starting to grow roots, and it's just like
I would just go with the plant. I would just be like, grow my minions.
Oh my goodness. There's actually a manga called Granelier or something. It's about a world where plants don't grow as well or anything anymore. One of the main characters, his dad like implants a seed in him. But no, there's a manga about it, and I don't know. That's what I thought about when you were talking about like letting it grow. But yeah, no, I have a big thing with seeds and stuff getting in my skin or pores, and it freaks me out. I get like a sense of paranoia. So maybe it's just certain people have certain fears.
I think some of these are some of these are really good. Some of these are really well written. I think some of these are literally just written like to try and trigger someone's paranoia or phobia.
Yeah.
They're literally written as triggers rather than written well.
Right.
So like that's why I didn't really like that one too. Because I don't experience that phobia. That's why I'm pretty laid back where I'm like, that'd be kind of cool.
So what do you think makes a good creepypasta?
It needs to, for me, a good creepypasta needs to sound real. It needs to have like scenarios and people's names, not necessarily dialogue. I think a lot of times when people are writing, especially short stories, they're like, I need to include an abundance of dialogue. And dialogue is usually where you lose your authenticity, because even when you tell a story of something that happened, if you try and quote someone, you're going to get it wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And too often dialogue just sounds like not accurate.
It sounds like a book.
Like that's not what someone would say. Like immediately we're like, no one has literally ever said, I'll buy it in reference to a house. They're like, what are they asking? You know? And if you haven't put yourself in that scenario, you haven't gone through that in your life. They always say, write what you know, because then you can write it well. If you're writing about something you've never done, it just has this like air of like cheesiness to it, where it's like, okay, like it interrupts your suspension of disbelief. And for something like a creepypasta, like it's hard to do that because like everyone already goes into it knowing like, okay, suspend your disbelief. So like the second one where it's like, look, this is a very basic premise. Like the kid finds it, he like tries this, then he tries this, then this happens, and then you get your twist. Like that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
for me, I don't like them very long. When they're super long, I'm like, okay, it's getting to be too much.
Right.
I like it when it's nice, short and sweet, and it needs to have a great twist.
Twists are, I think, important, very important to people, especially in like the horror genre. We watched that one movie with Bagul. I forget what it is. I think it's Sinister. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
But we talked about it because, like, spoiler alerts for Sinister if you haven't watched it yet. I haven't seen the second one either, but skip ahead 30 seconds. My biggest problem with that movie is, like, they never have a chance. Like, they find out like who he is, what he does, and how you'll die.
As soon as they go into a new house.
Yeah, and it's like,
dead.
And then they don't even follow the rules they were told. They immediately just do what like is gonna lead to their deaths, and then they die. And it's like they never try and like fight back or break the cycle. It's like
they can't. There's no way they can.
Well, they never even tried to do it. There's no dramatic tension because it's like what seemed like a foregone conclusion. Spoiler alert, was a foregone conclusion. And then you almost feel like, well, then why the hell did I just watch that? Why couldn't it just cut to them dying and then tell me a story about someone who fought back? Like with the Final Destination movies did that shit. It's like, you're destined to die. And then they just got on the fucking plane anyways. Like, movie over in 10 minutes. No franchise.
Yeah.
So that's something that just annoys the shit out of me.
I could see that being really annoying. I liked Final Destination.
I did too. I like the first one. I like the third one. The second one's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
At least in Final Destination, they've tried to fight it.
Yeah.
But like in
even
Sinister,
if it's a foregone
there's
conclusion,
just no way.
you fight back. Like that's the whole idea behind like dramatic tension,
Right?
Because you're rooting for this protagonist that you think is doomed, hoping that there's a way out. And then it's like, well, there really wasn't, but at least they fought back.
Yeah. I just for the twist, I need it to be not so much that it jumps the shark.
Well, this is the thing. That last one you read, there's really no twist. It went exactly where you thought it was going to go. It's like she basically like was like a potted plant in a bathtub that she filled with seeds, and then they started growing into her skin, which would take a really long time, just saying.
That's why it's a creepypasta. It's creeper.
I get that, but there's not like a big twist to it. I really like that it's 3 fingers instead of 2. Like that's a good ending, you know? It's not too big of a twist.
Left 4 Dead 3.
If you want a really good authentic sounding story, take a scenario that has happened to you, something you've done, and think about in your head like, what would I have done if this would have happened instead? You know what I mean? Take an experience, put something in it that didn't happen, and then think your way through what you have done. And then you can have something that's really, really authentic. Because a lot of times, like the dialogue of like trying to buy the house, even the police report. I've seen a lot of police reports doing this show.
They
I was
don't
like,
do that.
Yeah, no. You know what'd be a really cool touch is if you write that and then you have like something that looks exactly like a police report after that, like uploaded.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this was found in this person's journal or diary or whatever, which would, by the way, never have dialogue. You know, you kind of got to think through the genre and how you're going to write it, and it's just like, be a little bit more clever with it. The second one was pretty good. It was straight up a short story, and it was short, so I liked it.
Sweet. So that was the episode, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
So that's fun. I kind of like doing creepypastas. I was kind of
I like the conversation.
Yeah.
Of creepypastas.
I agree. I think we should probably do more creepypastas. Maybe not specifically for topic episodes, but maybe for some Patreon content. We could read them and then talk about them and post it there. But we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I think that's about everything that we have for episode 62. Thank you to the patrons who picked Robin's topic. It was really fun. I kind of want to read more. I kind of want to write my own now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I really do.
So cool.
It would be fun to do. But anyways, thank you so much for everyone who listened. And if you want to send us your homegrown horrors, which please don't make them creepypastas.
Yeah, no creepypastas.
If you're going to send us a creepypasta, like, hey, I wrote this thing and I really want you guys to read it, send it to us and straight up tell us, like, hey, I wrote this creepypasta and I want to know what you guys think. I am 100% cool with that. Like, disclose at the beginning, like, hey, this is a creepypasta I wrote. Let me know what you guys think.
Don't, like, put it off as, like, this is true.
Yeah, because we've had multiple ones that have come in where basically, like, someone was murdered during, like, the person writing it was murdered during it. And then somehow clicked send, which is just like, fuck you, don't do that to us.
Yeah.
But if you have a story you'd like to share with us that's paranormal or spiritual or coincidental or hilarious, email storytime@scarish.com. You can also go to our website, scarish.com, and click on the contact us button and submit your submission there. You don't even have to have an email address for that. You can just go on there and fill it out. You can also join all of our social medias from scarish.com because they're all linked there, including our Discord. And if you want to join there, there's a channel for Homegrown Horrors, and you can post there for instant feedback from the community. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Like the page, pretty please. And then message us there. You can join the Scarish Spooky Friends group from there as well. You can tweet at us at ScarishPod or message us on Instagram at ScarishPodcast. Robin, if folks have money and they're like, I want to give some of this to them, how can they give us that money?
So you can go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. Tiers low as $1. We have some physical goodie tiers. We have our badge of honor tier that's $10, and I am literally in the middle of finalizing our spring design for this year, and I'm gonna send that out in March. So if you guys want to be a part of that, take a look at that. And then there's coffee.com, ko-fi.com/scarish podcast. And that is one-time donations that'll help us upgrade our studio setup here. So
Indeed. And we appreciate everything that you guys do. Head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review if you haven't done so already. Please make it 5 stars if you love us. If you're sitting there and you're like, I really do like this show, but I've never rated or reviewed it. But if I did, I'd give it 5 stars. Just go do it. It really does help us.
It does help us out a lot.
So that said, I think that's just about everything that we have for this episode. Thank you one more time to everyone that listened. We appreciate you.
Let me know how my creepypasta voice is.
Yeah, please let her know what you thought. It's definitely different, and describe it a little bit. Don't be mean, be funny. But yeah, I think that's about everything we got. So I guess I'll take the sign out. So keep on creeping on, and we will see you guys later this week.